My life with Alex seemed perfect. We lived in a beautiful house and we had everything one could dream of. Alex was a successful businessman, and his achievements were widely known. However, behind the facade of our prosperity, something else was hiding. Alex was often away from home because of work, and I felt loneliness starting to take over me. At first, I tried to occupy myself with various hobbies and projects, but gradually this stopped bringing satisfaction. I missed the warmth and understanding that were once an integral part of our relationship. I often sat alone in the evenings, pondering how we had drifted apart. One day, in search of solace, I decided to visit a church. I hoped that faith would help me find the peace and support I so lacked. At the church, I met Pastor Dan. From the first glance, he seemed like someone who could understand my feelings. His words were filled with wisdom and compassion. Gradually, I started visiting the church more often, and Dan became an increasingly significant figure for me. His ability to listen and give wise advice helped me cope with loneliness. I felt that I was finding in the church the comfort I so lacked in everyday life. However, this was just the beginning of my journey. I started attending church regularly. Every Sunday morning, I felt a little better as I walked up the stone steps leading to the entrance of the sanctuary. Inside, I found the peace that I so lacked in everyday life. Pastor Dan soon became an important figure for me. His sermons filled me with a sense of hope, and his advice was more valuable than I could have expected. Over time, I began to go to confession with Dan. These meetings became a true salvation for me. Every week, I shared my worries and fears with him. He listened attentively, without interrupting, and gave wise advice that helped me cope with loneliness and emptiness. One day, during one of the confessions, I felt something new. It was like a flash of realization. I was attracted to the pastor. My feelings for him went beyond spiritual guidance. I could no longer keep it to myself and decided to confess to him. Gathering all my courage, I told Dan about my feelings. His face twisted with shock, and he suddenly stood up. "Marina, this is wrong," he said sternly. "You cannot have such feelings for me. Please leave." I walked out of the confessional, feeling deep shame and confusion. My emotions were raging inside me. I didn't know how to live with this confession, how to deal with the fact that I had opened up to the person who had been my comfort and support. The days after this incident turned into a painful wait, not knowing what to do next. When I returned for the next confession, my heart was pounding like never before. I felt deep shame and guilt for my confessions. As soon as I entered the confessional, I saw that Dan was avoiding my gaze. It hurt me, but I understood his reaction. For the first few minutes, he spoke in general terms, trying to keep his distance. But gradually, our conversation became personal again. He asked me about my feelings and experiences, and I, unable to hold back, began to talk about my loneliness and how much he had helped me. At the end of the confession, I felt the tension between us growing. We sat in silence, and suddenly he reached out and touched my hand. That touch was electric, like lightning striking my body. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I understood that our attraction was too strong. We left the confessional, feeling the tension building. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had crossed a line. Dan seemed as shaken as I was. We didn't exchange a word, but I knew this was just the beginning. When I got home, my thoughts constantly returned to that moment. I tried to keep myself busy with household chores and work, but nothing helped. I was consumed by my feelings and didn't know how to deal with it. The next time we met, there was an awkwardness in the confessional. Dan tried to remain serious, but I saw his gaze linger on my lips. He spoke to me again, and I told him about my feelings and fears. At some point, he fell silent and, giving in to an inner impulse, touched my hand again. I felt the warmth of his palm and responded to his touch. His hands slowly but surely wrapped around my waist. We moved closer, and I felt his breath on my neck. It was a strange feeling, a mixture of innocence and growing desire. He gently ran his fingers over my skin, and I couldn't hold back a quiet moan. Each of his touches sent waves of desire through me. I felt his hands becoming more confident as he pulled me closer. Our lips met in a soft kiss that quickly turned more passionate. I felt his tongue explore my mouth, and I responded with equal passion. My hand slid over his back, feeling every muscle beneath his clothes. We both lost control, our bodies demanding more. In that moment, I realized I wanted him stronger, harder. I wanted him to possess me completely. My moans grew louder as his hands began to explore my body. I felt our desire intensify, drawing us deeper into this forbidden whirlpool of passion. When we finally pulled away from each other, we were both breathing heavily. We knew this shouldn't have happened, but we couldn't stop. Our bodies burned with desire, and this was only the beginning. Our meetings with Dan in the confessional became regular and incredibly intimate. Each of our encounters felt like a forbidden fruit, tempting with its sweetness and sinfulness. I felt our hearts beat in unison, each touch becoming more burning and passionate. Each confession turned into a secret date where we gave in to our desires. Dan would close the door of the confessional, and we would immerse ourselves in a world where only we existed. His hands touched my face, his fingers gently running along the lines of my cheekbones, neck, and shoulders. We kissed with such passion that time seemed to stand still. One day, he pressed me against the wall of the confessional, his hot breath searing my neck. I felt his lips slide down, leaving a trail of kisses. My hands, as if on their own, wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer. We were two captives of passion, unable to stop. Every touch was like an explosion of emotions. His fingers ran over my body like skilled musicians, drawing quiet moans from me. He knew every weak spot, every place where his touch caused tremors and shivers. My moans grew louder, and I begged him to be harder, stronger. We moved in unison, our bodies merging in one rhythm. I felt his hands becoming more confident as he pulled me closer with such force that it seemed we would lose control. His whispers in my ear were like sweet poison, impossible to resist. He spoke the most intimate words, seducing and enchanting. Each meeting was filled with such passion that afterward I felt on the brink of madness. I knew I was betraying Alex, but I couldn't give up Dan. He became my drug, my weakness. Every time we met, I plunged into this forbidden world, full of passion and sin. We began to play role-playing games where I was his obedient servant. He loved it when I obeyed his every word. We found secluded spots in the church where he would order me to kneel before him. His voice was stern but full of desire. I felt his commands intensify my arousal. "Take off your dress," he ordered one day, and I obediently followed his command. My hands trembled as I unbuttoned my dress, but his gaze, filled with hunger, gave me courage. When I was left in just my underwear, he slowly approached me, his eyes burning with desire. He gently ran his fingers over my bare shoulders, and I couldn't hold back a quiet moan. His touches became more confident and insistent. He kissed my neck, moving lower and lower. I felt his hands exploring my body, and each second brought me indescribable pleasure. We knew we were risking everything, but this only fueled our fervor. Every time we were together, we risked everything we had. But this risk only fueled our fervor. We were like two magnets, irresistibly drawn to each other. One day, when we found ourselves in the confessional again, he whispered in my ear, "Marina, I can't live without you. You are my sin and my weakness." These words pierced my heart, and I realized we were on the edge with no return. But I was ready to go all the way, following this forbidden passion. My life had turned into constant chaos. I felt torn between two worlds. Home with Alex and our secret meetings with Dan. Every morning began with disguise. Every word and gesture were thought out to the smallest details to hide our affair. But no matter how hard I tried, the tension was growing. My heart was torn by contradictions. On one hand, I loved Alex, his support and care that he always showed me. On the other hand, I was drawn to Dan with such force that I couldn't resist. His touches, his words, his passion, all of it became my new drug. Every time I came home after meeting Dan, I felt pangs of conscience. I looked at Alex and saw in his eyes the love I was betraying. The inner conflict was eating me up inside. I knew I had to end this affair. but every time I tried, Dan reassured me of our true love. "Marina, what we have is not just passion. It's something more," he said, looking into my eyes with such sincerity that I couldn't help but believe him. "We are meant for each other." These words resonated in my heart, and again, I gave in. I tried to find excuses for my actions, but the pangs of conscience grew stronger. I felt I was losing control of my life, sinking deeper into this abyss. Meanwhile, Alex became increasingly suspicious and tense. He noticed my detachment, my frequent absences, and strange behavior. I saw his gaze becoming colder, a shadow of doubt appearing in his eyes. "Marina, you've changed. Is something wrong?" he asked one evening as we sat at dinner. His voice was quiet, but there was a hint of wariness in it. I smiled, trying to hide my nervousness. "Everything is fine, Alex, just a lot of work." But I knew his suspicions were growing. I felt the tension between us increasing, an icy wall growing between us. Each day it became harder to hide the truth, and I knew that sooner or later everything would be revealed. It all happened one fateful evening when I came for another confession with Dan. We were alone in the church, and the tension in the air was palpable. Dan suggested we play our favorite role-playing game, where I was the obedient parishioner, and he was the strict pastor. We closed the confessional door and began our secret rendezvous. I wore the parishioner's robe, and we fully immersed ourselves in our roles. Dan was strict and authoritative, his commands filled with passion, and I obeyed his every word. His touches were burning, and I felt our desire growing with each second. At one point, I found myself on my knees before Dan, and he commanded me to be obedient. I felt his hands exploring my body, and each touch sent waves of pleasure through me. We were completely absorbed in each other, forgetting about everything else. I ended up straddling Dan, our bodies moving in unison. I moaned, my mouth wide open, fully giving in to our passion. We noticed nothing around us, completely immersed in our world. My moans grew louder as our desire reached its peak. Suddenly, the door of the confessional burst open, and one of the parishioners entered the room. She froze in the doorway, seeing us in such an intimate position. At first, we didn't notice her, completely absorbed in each other. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw me straddling Dan, my moans echoing through the room. We turned and saw her. She stood there, unable to move, her face pale and eyes filled with horror. She quickly ran out without saying a word. I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. We knew that now everything would come out. Rumors quickly spread through the community, igniting a scandal. People whispered, exchanged glances, and condemning words. Everyone knew about our affair, and it became the main topic of conversation. Alex started hearing rumors about Marina and the pastor, his anger and disappointment growing every day. He became suspicious, his gaze cold and distant. He began checking up on me, trying to catch me in a lie. I felt the end was near and didn't know how to handle it. Dan lost the trust of the parishioners, his reputation destroyed. People turned away from him. He was no longer the person they entrusted with their most intimate thoughts and feelings. His faith in his world crumbled. I realized that my actions had serious consequences for everyone. I had destroyed not only my life, but also the lives of Alex, Dan, and the entire community. Guilt and shame consumed me, and I didn't know how to go on. Alex couldn't take it any longer. When he found out the truth, his anger and disappointment exploded like a storm. He burst into our home, his eyes burning with fury. "How could you, Marina?" he shouted, his voice trembling with anger and pain. "You destroyed everything we had. I trusted you. We were together for so many years, and you threw it all away for this pastor?" I tried to explain, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Alex, please listen to me. It's not what you think. I was lonely. I didn't know how to cope." "Lonely?" His laughter was cold and harsh. "You could have talked to me instead. You went and betrayed me. Do you know how that feels?" "I never meant to hurt you," I whispered, but he cut me off. His face twisted in pain. I can't live with you anymore. I can't look at you and not think about what you did. I want a divorce, Marina. This is the end. When Alex left, I was alone, engulfed in guilt and despair. Everything I had ever valued had collapsed around me. I couldn't stop thinking about how I had betrayed Alex, destroyed our marriage, and lost the trust of the entire community. My thoughts were devoid of any bright moments, only darkness and emptiness. One day, Alex came home to gather his things. His face was cold and distant. He didn't want to hear my explanations or excuses. You need to leave, he said, not looking me in the eye. I can't live with you anymore. I tried to plead with him, tears streaming down my cheeks. Alex, please, give me a chance to explain. I know I made a terrible mistake, but… No buts, Marina. He interrupted me. You've destroyed everything. Leave. Dan, upon learning what had happened, tried to console me. He came to see me every day, his words filled with sympathy and hope for the future. We can start over, Marina, he said, his voice full of confidence. We'll find a way to be together and happy. But the more I listened to him, the more I realized that our relationship was built on deceit and betrayal. I could no longer live with this lie, and despite the pain, I made a decision. Dan, this has to end, I told him one evening. Our relationship was a mistake from the beginning. I need to find a way to atone for my sins and rebuild my life. His eyes filled with sadness, but he didn't argue. If that's what you truly want, I'll understand. But know that I'll always be here if you need support. Alex filed for divorce, leaving me in a state of complete collapse. I looked at the papers, feeling the world crumble beneath me. Everything that mattered had vanished in an instant. Every evening, I prayed alone, begging for forgiveness. I sought solace in faith, trying to find a path to redemption. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I asked God to help me find the strength to get through this ordeal and find a way to the light. I realized that I had lost everything and would have to start from scratch. I had to find the strength within myself to get through this, to rebuild my life, and earn forgiveness, primarily from myself. My life became unbearable. After the rumors spread through the community, I faced scorn and judgment. People I once knew and respected now looked at me with disgust. They whispered behind my back, their gazes full of condemnation. I could no longer go to my favorite church, where I was now considered a sinner and despised. Each visit became an ordeal, and eventually I stopped going. Dan lost his place in the church. His life was also ruined. Parishioners who once trusted him now turned away. He could no longer be a pastor. His reputation was destroyed. We both found ourselves on the fringes of society, unable to reclaim what we had. I tried to rebuild my life, but felt that I couldn't start with a clean slate. Every morning, I woke up with feelings of guilt and shame. Memories of what had happened haunted me. I couldn't find peace within myself or among others. Each day reminded me of my mistakes and shattered dreams. I realized that the only way to start over was to leave the town and put the past behind me. I made the difficult decision to leave everything I knew and move to a new place where no one would know about my past. It was the only chance for redemption and recovery. In the new town, I found a job. It was a small cafe where I could start afresh. Every day I worked, trying to gradually restore my emotional state. The work helped me distract myself from thoughts of the past and focus on the future. Gradually, I began to feel that I was finding a new meaning in life. I met new people who didn't know about my past and accepted me for who I was. It was the beginning of a new path, full of hopes and opportunities. But I knew that I had a long journey ahead to complete redemption and forgiveness. My new life began with small steps. I realized that in order to heal, I needed to work on myself. I started attending therapy and support groups. These meetings helped me understand that I was not alone in my suffering, that other people were also going through tough trials. Gradually, I began to restore my inner world. I worked on my self-esteem, learning to accept myself as I am. It was difficult to stop judging myself for past mistakes, but I knew it was the only way to true healing. I became an active member of the new community I found myself in. I started helping others, sharing my experiences, and supporting those who needed comfort and advice. This gave me a sense of purpose and helped me feel that I could change my life and the lives of others for the better. Soon, I met new friends who helped me overcome my feelings of guilt and shame. They accepted me as I was and supported my efforts to create a better life. These new relationships became a source of joy and inspiration for me. I began writing a book about my experiences. I hoped that my story would help others avoid the mistakes I had made. Writing became a form of therapy for me, a way to free myself from the past and find a path to a brighter future. Traveling and new hobbies also helped me find inner peace. I began exploring new places, immersing myself in the cultures and traditions of other countries. This broadened my horizons and filled my life with new experiences. Every day I learned to live anew, to accept myself and my past, and to find joy in simple things. My life gradually became more fulfilling and meaningful. I understood that the path to cleansing was long and difficult, but each step brought me closer to inner peace and happiness. My journey to cleansing and inner peace continued. Writing became not just a way to cope with the pain, but also an opportunity to share my experiences with others. The book I had long written and edited was finally published. I didn't expect it to receive such a wide response. People from different corners of the world wrote to me, thanking me for the honesty and support they found in the pages of my book. My words helped them cope with their own difficulties and find the strength to change. My book became a symbol of hope for many, and this realization gave me strength. I felt that my mistakes and experiences were not in vain, that they were helping others find their way to the light. I held meetings with readers, organized seminars, and did everything possible to support those who needed help. During this time, I met someone who accepted me as I was. His name was Michael, and he was a sincere and kind person. We started building our relationship on trust and love, and with each meeting, I realized more and more that I had found someone who was ready to walk with me through life without judging me for my past mistakes. Michael knew that I had secrets, but he never tried to uncover them. He respected my right to privacy and understood that some things were better left in the past. Our relationship blossomed, and with each new encounter, we grew closer. Michael supported me in all my endeavors, inspired me to new achievements, and helped me see the light in the darkest moments. His love and care were a true blessing for me. Every day, I thanked fate for the chance to start anew. I kept my sins a secret, deciding to leave them hidden for life. My past remained beyond the threshold of my new life, and I tried not to look back. Together with Michael, we were building a future full of hope and bright moments. My life had changed beyond recognition. I found inner peace, accepted myself and my mistakes. I realized that even the hardest trials could become a source of strength and inspiration. My book was helping people. My relationship with Michael brought joy and confidence in the future.